Imagine a land so fierce, so untamed, and so terrifying that even the mightiest empire in the ancient world, Rome, dared not cross its borders. Picture dense, pitch-black forests where roaming wolves howled through the shadows, and fiercely independent warriors stood ready to spill their blood for freedom. This was a place where 3 entire Roman legions were utterly annihilated in a single, brutal ambush, freezing the expansion of a global superpower forever. But the story of these lands does not end in the mud and blood of ancient forests. It is a legendary saga of visionary kings, devastating religious wars that wiped out half a population, the fiery birth of an iron empire, the darkest depths of totalitarian evil, and a nation literally torn in two by a concrete wall before rising from total atomic ruin to become the beating economic heart of modern Europe. Welcome to the dramatic, sprawling story of a nation that shaped the destiny of the Western world. Long before Germany ever existed as a unified nation, its lands were a dense, untamed wilderness of dark forests, roaming wolves, and fiercely independent tribes. In the ancient world, the Romans called this vast region Germania, a formidable barrier separating the civilized Mediterranean from the fierce Germanic warriors of the north. For centuries, empires clashed along the Rhine and the Danube, most famously demonstrated when Germanic tribes led by Arminius ambushed and annihilated 3 Roman legions in the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, halting the westward expansion of Rome forever. As the Roman Empire collapsed, the Germanic peoples did not vanish. Instead, they shaped the foundation of medieval Europe. The most powerful of these tribes, the Franks under Charlemagne, forged a massive empire that spanned across modern-day Germany, France, and Italy. Following Charlemagne, the region evolved into the Holy Roman Empire, a complex, decentralized web of hundreds of independent kingdoms, duchies, free imperial cities, and principalities. While ostensibly united under an emperor, it was famously described by thinkers later as neither holy, nor Roman, nor an empire, but rather a fractured mosaic of Germanic power, where powerful states like Prussia and Austria would eventually rise to dominate. The fragile unity of the Germanic lands was shattered in the 16th century when a German monk named Martin Luther nailed his 985 Theses to the door of the Wittenberg Castle Church. This act ignited the Protestant Reformation, plunging Germany and the rest of Europe into a century of devastating religious conflict, culminating in the 30 Years' War. Between 1618 and 1648, the German states became the main battlefield for a catastrophic war of religion and politics, losing nearly half of their population to famine, disease, and slaughter. Out of the ashes of this devastation, the Kingdom of Prussia emerged in the east, building a disciplined military state that would eventually challenge Austria for supremacy over the German lands. The 19th century brought the unstoppable rise of nationalism and industrialization. Following the Napoleonic Wars, the German Confederation was established, but the people hungered for true unity. Enter Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor of Prussia, who used a series of calculated wars against Denmark, Austria, and France to unite the German states under Prussian leadership. In 1871, the German Empire was officially proclaimed in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles, finally creating a single, powerful nation-state in the heart of Europe that quickly became an industrial and military powerhouse. However, this newfound global ambition dragged Germany into the catastrophic abyss of World War I. Following 4 years of brutal trench warfare and immense suffering, the German Empire collapsed in 1918, replaced by the fragile democratic experiment known as the Weimar Republic, which struggled under the crushing economic and political burdens of the Treaty of Versailles. Economic ruin, political instability, and social despair paved the way for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, who seized power in 1933 and plunged the world into the darkest chapter of human history, World War II and the Holocaust. By 1945, Germany lay in total ruins, its cities bombed to dust, its millions dead, and its territory carved up by the victorious Allied powers. The nation was split into 2 separate states during the Cold War: West Germany, a thriving capitalist democracy allied with the West, and East Germany, a communist satellite state locked behind the Iron Curtain, symbolized by the infamous Berlin Wall. For over 4 decades, families were divided, and 2 opposing ideologies glared at each other across the heart of Europe. The miraculous turning point came in 1989 with the peaceful fall of the Berlin Wall, leading swiftly to the German reunification in 1990. Today, a united Germany stands as the economic anchor of the European Union, a beacon of democracy, innovation, and peace. From ancient tribes to a fractured empire, through world wars and the division of the Cold War, Germany has risen from the ashes to forge a remarkable modern destiny. Imagine walking through the streets of Berlin in the autumn of 1989, where a city had been sliced in half by concrete, barbed wire, and ideology for nearly 3 decades. Families were torn apart overnight, guards patrolled a deadly death strip, and the world lived under the constant, terrifying shadow of nuclear annihilation. Yet, in a matter of a few astonishing weeks, ordinary people armed with nothing more than hammers, chisels, and an unstoppable desire for freedom brought down the most infamous wall of the modern era. How did a nation that once plunged the entire globe into the darkest abyss of total destruction transform itself into a pillar of peace, unity, and modern democracy? This is the epic, untold continuation of the German story, a journey through the monumental triumphs, the quiet struggles, and the incredible rebirth of a superpower that continues to shape our world today. Following the unimaginable devastation of World War II, Germany was no longer a sovereign nation. In 1945, the victorious Allied powers, the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union carved the defeated country into 4 distinct occupation zones, while the capital city of Berlin, deep inside the Soviet zone, was similarly fractured into 4 sectors. What was meant to be a temporary administration quickly turned into the front line of the Cold War. As geopolitical tensions escalated between the capitalist West and the communist East, the cracks widened into an unbridgeable chasm. In 1949, 2 separate countries were officially born: the Federal Republic of Germany, known as West Germany, and the German Democratic Republic, known as East Germany. West Germany, anchored by cities like Bonn and Frankfurt, embraced a social market economy and a democratic constitution. Backed by the Marshall Plan and allied with Western powers, it experienced an astonishing economic miracle known as the Wirtschaftswunder. Factories roared back to life, sleek automobiles rolled off assembly lines, and cities were rebuilt from the rubble into modern metropolises. People enjoyed freedom of speech, travel, and democratic elections, turning West Germany into a prosperous beacon of the free world. Just across an imaginary Iron Curtain, however, a very different reality unfolded. East Germany, controlled by a strict communist regime backed by Moscow, became a surveillance state monitored by the feared Stasi secret police. Citizens lived under heavy economic stagnation, severe shortages of consumer goods, and a total suppression of political dissent. The disparity between the 2 Germanys became blindingly obvious. While West Germans enjoyed consumer freedom and economic growth, East Germans watched their standard of living lag far behind. The temptation to cross to the other side became irresistible. By 1961, the hemorrhage of desperate citizens fleeing East Germany for the West through the open border in Berlin had reached a crisis point, threatening to collapse the East German economy entirely. In the dead of night, beginning on August 13, 1961, East German authorities abruptly sealed the border. Barbed wire was strung across streets, and overnight, families, friends, and co-workers found themselves separated by a hostile barrier that would soon evolve into the concrete monstrosity known globally as the Berlin Wall. Guard towers, watchdogs, anti-vehicle trenches, and shoot-to-kill orders turned the border into a lethal zone. Over the next 28 years, hundreds would risk their lives trying to scale, tunnel under, or fly over the wall to freedom. And many would pay the ultimate price. For decades, the wall stood as a cold concrete monument to human division, a grim reminder of a world teetering on the brink of nuclear war. But history is full of surprises, and the late 1980s brought sweeping winds of change. Across the Soviet bloc, Economic strain and public discontent were reaching a boiling point. In the Soviet Union, leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced policies of glasnost and perestroika, signaling that Moscow would no longer use military force to prop up hardline communist dictatorships in Eastern Europe. The dam finally broke in the autumn of 1989. Peaceful protests, famously known as the Monday demonstrations, swelled in cities like Leipzig, drawing hundreds of thousands of courageous citizens chanting "Wir sind das Volk, we are the people." The East German government, isolated and abandoned by its traditional Soviet patrons, buckled under the pressure. On the evening of November 9, 1989, a confused government official awkwardly announced during a live press briefing that travel restrictions to the West were lifted immediately. Pandemonium ensued. Thousands of East Berliners rushed to the checkpoints, demanding the guards open the gates. Overwhelmed and outnumbered, the border guards gave way. People flooded across the frontier, champagne bottles popped, strangers wept and embraced atop the concrete barrier, and ordinary citizens armed with hammers and chisels began chipping away at the hated symbol of oppression. The Berlin Wall had fallen, and with it, the artificial barrier that had cleaved a nation in two for nearly half a century. The euphoria of reunification was followed by an immense and complex political undertaking. On October 3, 1990, the formal reunification of Germany was officially completed, bringing the former East German states back into the federal fold. Rebuilding the Eastern infrastructure, integrating two vastly different economies, and healing the psychological scars of division required billions of dollars and decades of patience. Yet, the nation persevered, proving that the bonds of a shared history and culture were far stronger than decades of political separation. Today, a united Germany stands at the very center of European leadership, serving as a powerful economic anchor, a champion of human rights, and a steadfast advocate for continental cooperation and peace. From the dark, untamed forests of ancient tribes to the fiery rise of empires, through the apocalyptic devastation of world wars, the chilling division of the Cold War, and the joyous triumph of reunification, the story of Germany is a testament to the unbreakable resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for watching this deep dive into history. If you enjoyed this journey through time, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more epic stories here on History Beyond Time.